Good morning, monsters. Today's episode is going to be pre recorded for Memorial Day. I hope that you guys are all out having a great weekend and exploring the unknown, just like I am. I'm going to be up in the upper Michigan this weekend, camping out looking for the big hairy man Bigfoot. But welcome to Monsters on the Edge. Guys, just a couple quick things right off the bat. I want to remind everyone we have our show on Paraflix streaming service as well as YouTube. On the Trail of Undiscovered Beasts is on Paraflix streaming now. Season 1 is all out. And Paraflix is like the Netflix of paranormal. You can get every month for just $3.99 or 10% off your first 3 months with promo code CAPS10. If you want to show your support for all we do here at Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society, head on over to our store at wisconsincaps.com. Click on Shop Our Store. There you can find t-shirts, hats, stickers, mugs, tote bags, tank tops, and more, all with your favorite logos, and show your support and wear our logos and show everyone how much you love Wisconsin Caps. While you're on social media and online, head on over to Patreon, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. You can find us at Wisconsin Caps, or on Instagram, search for WI Caps. All right, guys, if you want to see us in person, we are going to be at the Small Town Monsters Monster Fest. That is coming up June 3rd in Canton, Ohio, and my guest today is going to tell you all about that, as well as a whole bunch of more stuff. So we'll leave that there for now. And then June 9th and 10th, we are going to be in Marinette, Menominee, Michigan for the Bigfoot and Paranormal Convention. And June 17th, we head down to Chicago for the Chicago Paranormal Convention. And we'll be at MI Paracon in August in Sault Ste. Marie, Upper Michigan. And the Great Lakes Paranormal Conference in Glen Beulah, Wisconsin, September 22nd through the 24th. And of course, Cryptid Con in Lexington, Kentucky in November. That's what we got coming up. Guys, my guest today has done so much. I can't even go down an entire resume. We're going to let him speak for himself here. All kinds of YouTube, all kinds of documentary series and movies, and we're going to get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest from Small Town Monsters, Seth Breedlove. Welcome to the show, Seth.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Hey, so for people who aren't familiar with you, which hopefully isn't many people, can you give us how long have you been doing Small Town Monsters, and what is it, and what do you got going on?
STM started we started making Minerva Monster in 2014, which is also when I technically started the company. So we've been going at it for 10 years almost. The official STM 10-year anniversary will be 2025, but technically I've already been doing it since then, because STM began as a book proposal that I put together all the way back in 2013. So it has been a long road to where we are today. So it's we started out as just a very small scale production company. We are still a very small scale production company, but we've branched out into focusing on episodic content on YouTube now, and we do book publishing as well. We just published a book by Aaron Deese called The Texas Dogman Triangle that just came out on Tuesday. And we kind of are attempting to build, Jonathan Dodd told me I am the Roger Corman of crypto filmmakers, which I kind of, I think we're more like we're a production house, but the goal is to bring in people who have their own ideas about this stuff, and give them a place where they can make the content they want to make about these subjects. So that's why we have Alexander Pedikov and Eli Watson kind of doing what they want to do, and then we bring in authors on the publishing side of things who have a very specific vision and a story they want to tell, and we give them a platform to do it, which is cool because when I started out doing this, that was not a thing. There was no small town monsters, and the companies that did exist that were at all in this space were pretty much just run by like most of them were a one-man band, which is what SDM was as well in the early days. So now we can bring in other people and we give them a home for telling the stories they want to tell. I kind of ran out. That's a rant. I don't know what I'm talking about. I've been editing. I woke up at we're trying to get the first episode of Sasquatch on Earth done, and I just edited the entire episode in 5 days, and it's an hour plus long, and it borders on being the same production quality as one of our movies. So I essentially edited a movie in 5 days. So my brain is burned out.
I completely understand that. I do all the editing for our group as well, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I say on average 15 minutes of what you see on our channel took me 4 hours of editing. So
yeah, a podcast takes. This is the funny thing about podcasts too, is like when most people that listen to podcasts but do not participate in their creation think it's like you sit down in front of a microphone, you record, and then you pop that up online and it's listened to by a bunch of people. But the podcast recording is like 1/10 of the work that goes into actually creating a podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if you know, we do a documentary as well. We do research and stuff. I mean, we have a whole YouTube series kind of similar to that, like research.
Awesome.
Or,
Yeah.
It's a lot of filming.
It is, yeah. You guys do a lot of work too. It's fun because like I think the arena continues to expand, and there is. I try to explain this to other filmmakers, especially who are just coming into it. There is no such thing as competition within this space, because it's a rising tide situation. If one of us is doing well, it will typically send more people to the other people that are working within the paranormal world. So the greatest example of that was always, to me anyway, there was a series called Hellier, and it came out the same year that our Terror in the Skies movie came out. And I've always felt like Terror in the Skies is like a fluke because it is a straight ahead like cryptozoology movie that we put out about a topic that is not mainstream, that still managed to do extremely well. And a lot of the reasoning behind it had to do with the fact that Hellier came out right around the same time. And between the two of them on Amazon, they were kind of like sending viewers back and forth because they were popping up in each other's recommends. So I don't believe in competition within this world. It's good to be competitive. Like it's good to let competition drive the quality of what you're creating. But as far as actual competition, anytime I see someone come, I witness this a lot, and you probably have too, but you'll see people that are like just getting into this, and they'll either be starting a company or they'll be creating a project, and this happens constantly. They'll go on YouTube or they'll go on their social media and they'll proudly proclaim that they're about to be like the biggest thing in paranormal filmmaking and unseat that there's always like that sort of thing. Like, so I'm going to unseat X, X, Y, or Z and become the new paranormal powerhouse. And typically they just eventually give up, because the other big part of it, you've been around for a long time, so I know you're aware of this. The biggest thing is your ability to just stay doing what you're doing, to stay consistent with it and keep working at it. That's the biggest part of having any form of success in this field that I found anyway.
Absolutely. I feel like, there's a lot of criticism, there's always going to be haters out there that, don't like what you're doing or how it's made or how it's filmed or whatever. And like you said, you just got to do your own thing and stick to it, because, at the end of the day, if, nobody else likes it, you're doing it for yourself. You're making a product that makes you happy and doing it your way. And if you try and make somebody else happy and do it their way, you're not going to be satisfied with the way that you're putting it out, and you're not going to like the product that you're making anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you have, a a list of all these documentaries and stuff that you're working on. I want to talk about some of the new stuff that you got coming out. And the main thing is for anybody that knows me, really, really what I'm into is the chupacabra. And I know that you got the new chupacabra film coming out this year. What can you tell us about that one?
Not much. I actually just had a phone call regarding the special effects. So this is a co-directing it's a co-directing project, which is my first. I've never co-directed anything, but I'm co-directing it with Eli. So Eli Watson's directing it. His dream project all time is a chupacabra movie. So he's going to be directing it with me and then editing. We have filmed 3 or 4 of the interviews. A bunch of the interviews are also being filmed at Monster Fest. So I know we're going to interview Micah Hanks, and Aaron Deese is going to be involved. So it is going to be a very similar to like some of our other productions, like the Mothman at Point Pleasant or Terror in the Skies. It's not as much about like eyewitness encounters as it is sort of contextualizing the entire phenomenon for the audience. And because it's a convoluted topic, the chupacabra. The creature itself has morphed over time from the South American lizard-like being into this blue devil dog thing that runs around Texas. And so but we still do hear reports of like the lizard-like chupacabra down in the desert Southwest states. So I've always wanted to see a movie that took all of that history and put it together in a way, that was concise. And so that's what I'm excited about is getting to do that and getting to tell that story. And I know Eli is extremely excited about it. Beyond that, I don't know much. We've shot interviews. I know what the visuals are like. We shot the B-roll. We used a lot of really wide lenses and then really tight lenses for the interview. So it should have a unique look. We shot a ton of 8mm footage, which is going to be used in that one. But yeah, as far as the visuals go and what the story is going to be and how it's going to flow, I'm not 100% sure yet. We've had 3 or 4 creative meetings, but nothing has. You never know. Again, like you're probably aware of this, but you never know how this stuff is going to go until you've got the whole thing shot and you're sitting down with the footage and putting it together, because very often these things change dramatically when you get into the edit. Like you realize something doesn't work in the way you expected it to, and now you've got to pivot and find this other way of doing it. The greatest example of that is what we did with American Werewolves. I was just talking to someone about this not too long ago. That was originally supposed to be a very cut and dried, witness focused documentary, and with some like Twin Peaks influence involved, but it wasn't supposed to be weird. It was supposed to just be a very, the Twin Peaks stuff was just more, that was just a design thing. Like I wanted that in the logo design and things like that, but it was not going to be what it became, which is a very, very early 90s paranormal styled documentary that leaned heavily into the synth music and all that kind of stuff, really, helping to drive the style of it. That was never a part of the process going into it. It just, when I got into the edit, I had the whole movie cut. There's early cuts of that movie where it's just a straight ahead witness focused documentary. And I was so bored watching it. I said, this is not going to work. There's no style to it. It doesn't have its own voice. And then I couldn't sleep one night, and I was watching YouTube on my phone in bed at like 3 a.m. And I found an episode of that old show Sightings. And I enjoyed it so much. And I loved the cheesiness of the recreations and the cheese of how it was shot and everything. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And so then that next day I started cutting with that in mind, and the movie completely changed overnight and became American Werewolves, which is one of the better received things we've put out in the last like 10 years.
Very cool.
I don't. You asked about chupacabra. Somehow I started talking about American Werewolves.
Yeah. It all blends together there. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have done so many different creatures and stuff, and I know you've done some like not overseas, but some other cryptids and that. Have you ever thought about doing like Mokele Membe or some of the other weirder ones?
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Actually, so we I don't know that we're ever going to get to go that deep, but I do know that is something Alex and I have had discussions about Alex doing is Mekele and Bembe, and then there's a Sasquatch type creature that's also in like South Africa. Alex grew up in South Africa, so like he wants to do that kind of thing. We just did our first international production because we just got back from filming in BC for a Bigfoot show. The toughest thing about all this, and I hope this doesn't stay the case forever, and I don't think it will, but the toughest thing about what we do as a company is you do have to be aware of what your audience wants. And for some reason right now, the audience really just wants Bigfoot and Dogman. And so it's great. I love making On the Trail of Bigfoot. It's a really personal series. I just filmed the most recent one in BC right after my mom died. It was literally like between my mom passing and the funeral, I went and shot a movie. And so I get to bring all that into those movies, but you do get bored with just doing like one subject over and over. And so we were to a point where it seemed like everything we were putting out that wasn't about Bigfoot or Dogman was kind of flopping. So you had this stuff like Jersey Devil came out, and people had demanded a Jersey Devil movie from us for years. And we put a Jersey Devil movie out, no one watches it. And the same thing happened with like Lake Michigan Mothman and On the Trail of UFOs Night Visitors, like all these things that are supposed to be that your audience says they want, and then you put it out and they don't watch it. So, but then you put out anything Dogman or Bigfoot related, and they're all in. So what we had to do is figure out a way to still be able to tell stories that aren't just Bigfoot or Dogman, and that was when we came up with the concept of doing what we're doing with Chupacabra, which is it's a Kickstarter exclusive title. Sorry, that's my dad calling. It's a Kickstarter exclusive title for the first year. And then it'll go to an audience. And that allows us to first of all, test the waters on if people are going to be into these topics. But it also gives us a chance to just kind of like piggyback that movie on the production budgets of our other movies. So I know we're doing Chupacabra this year, and next year we want to do Goatman. And those are not topics that we typically would have been able to make as a movie, because if you're just looking at like production side of things and will this actually make a profit, or are we going to lose money making it? A Goatman movie might not be a safe bet. But now we can hopefully do that kind of thing. But it's always predicated on if there's an interest in the subjects you're covering. I know at STM, there's a strange mix of like people who have no interest in this stuff at all. They just like making movies. And then there's the people like Alex and Eli and myself who are super into like the cryptozoology side of things. And then you've got like Heather and Courtney who are into like ghost hunting and the stuff I'm not at all into. So we have a mix of people here with very varied interests. Eli's really into UFO stuff, and so am I. Alex is more on the cryptozoology side of things. So ultimately the goal is that everyone would be able to focus on topics we all like. But to do that, we also have to make sure there's an audience that is actually interested in seeing those things.
Do you think that the audience just isn't as interested because there may not be as much physical evidence of like the Goatman, the Chupacabra, the Mothman?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think about this stuff a lot because you do wonder, but it can't be that. And the reason I don't think it can't be that, the reason it cannot be that is Mothman is like a huge cryptid. Like next to Bigfoot, it's probably the most popular out there right now. Maybe Dogman is sneaking up behind it, but and there's no evidence anywhere for Mothman outside of witness stories. And so I don't think it's that. I don't know what it is though. That's the trick, is trying to figure out what drives the interest in specific monsters, cryptids at specific times. You know, Bigfoot, I actually feel like Bigfoot's going through like kind of a downtime right now. I think we're right at the beginning of kind of like a downtime for Bigfoot. Whereas, you know, something like Mothman popped off in 2015 and then just exploded over the next like 8 years. I don't know what accounted for that. So I have to believe it's more about the stories that are tied to these things than it is the monsters themselves. So I think it's more about like what the witnesses, how the witnesses' stories are told, or the ways in which they're told, and then somehow that connecting with an audience. I also think Mothman has the best of the cryptid tales, because it's a 3-act structure. I've talked about this a lot, but the Mothman's the only cryptid I'm aware of that has a classic like 3-act structure, where, you know, it shows up on a road one night and it chases some kids, and then the town goes crazy and goes after it, and then the bridge collapses, and then it's supposedly no longer seen. It was still seen after that, but the bridge collapse acted as a bookend, you know, for everything happening. And there aren't other cryptids that have that kind of epic structure to them, because there's so much going on with the Mothman. It isn't just the Mothman being seen. It was like the Mothman was seen in UFOs and Men in Black and, you know, all this other craziness. I think that accounts a lot for Mothman being so popular. Jersey Devil went through a really big phase for a while where it was in the 80s. It was huge. You had the New Jersey Heather hockey team. And I remember staying at my grandma's house back in the 80s and seeing documentaries on TV about Jersey Devil. Loch Ness Monster was like that too. Loch Ness was huge in the 80s. And I feel like you hear very little about Loch Ness today outside of, you know, like mainstream news stories will pop up every now and then with like a bad photo or something. But I don't know what accounts for what cryptid is popular at any given time. I wish I knew, because it would make my life a lot easier.
So with all of your eyewitness accounts and going out there and filming these things and stuff, besides, I mean, I assume that you believe Bigfoot is real, right?
I've seen it. So yeah, that's the one that I'm on board with.
Okay. So besides that one, then, is there any of them that you found like enough compelling witness accounts or evidence, you know, to say that, you know, there's actually something to it, you know, as far as like the Mothman, especially like the Chicago Mothman sightings lately? I know you did work on that as well, and the Beast of Bray Road here in Wisconsin, or, you know, even the chupacabra. Do you have enough witness accounts and stuff that you've had?
It's tough, because it's always like, which version of what are you talking about? Because like the Mothman, I think, was like multiple different things were happening there, and I think one of them was that there was Thunderbird. I think there was a Thunderbird around Point Pleasant. I believe Thunderbirds are real. I don't believe it's a species of giant bird. I believe it's like typically a mutated bird or an abnormally large bird that's just within that, you know, its line. It's Thunderbird's one of the ones that I am on board with. The other one, and this one surprises people, including my son, I 100% believe the Flatwoods Monster was real, but it's not the classic green 13-foot tall monster wearing a dress with long arms. I believe the Mays saw an experimental rocket, because that is what they're describing when you talk to them. And so that was my belief as far as that one goes. That one's kind of a cop out, but the Thunderbirds and Flatworms are there too. I'm convinced are real physical things. Dogman creeps me out because I think we're dealing with something supernatural. And there's a lot of occult activity tied to Dogman sightings, and that gets overlooked a lot of the time. But we're actually delving into that this year too. I guess a couple times. The Dogman Triangle movie that comes out at the end of June does not delve into the supernatural side of things very much. Most of the sightings in that are very ground level, flesh and blood. And I know that Aaron is in that camp, that he believes it's just like an undiscovered upright walking dog, canid. But our American Werewolves 2 comes out this summer, and that gets much more into the shape-shifting occult side of things. We interviewed a lot of different people in New Mexico, including members of the Navajo Nation, who talk about, the borderline demonic side of skinwalker legends and Dogman sightings. And then there's also a project that we haven't even announced yet that is coming out this year. And it's coming out this fall it's being created by a friend of mine named Ward Heine, that will probably delve into the darker side of the Dogman topic when it comes to like the occult. But we haven't announced that yet. We don't even have a title for it, but it has been shot. It's been filmed. It's in the editing phase, but we don't have a title for it.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the whole, there's Bigfoot, there's Yeti, there's Yowie, there's those, but typically they're all like described the same, as far as a Bigfoot creature. When you look at the Dogman phenomenon, you have a lot of different things being described. You have the Anubis type creatures, you have the werewolf type creatures, you have the hyena looking creatures, and then you have all the different stories of, well, it's just a dog that stands on its hind legs, or the shapeshifters of, like the skinwalkers and stuff like that. Do you think that these are multiple creatures that people are seeing, or is it all the same phenomenon, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. When it comes to Dogman, when it comes to the variance in description, I think that's a giveaway, or not a giveaway. It's a, I don't know what word I'm looking for. I have found, and this is just from my own experience with that topic, that I can't interview a witness to Dogman without it somehow being connected to either the occult or places where the occult was prevalent at some time. And when I say that, I mean, I literally have not interviewed someone of probably 24 witnesses or more. It might be more. I've made 3. How many movies have I made? At this point, I've made 4 movies about Dogman, and I've been in 5 movies about Dogman. And almost every witness is somehow talking about something that they've encountered that either took place in a location where weird things happened, usually nefarious things happened, or they're talking about previously themselves being involved in like the occult. So I think that's tied somehow to the Dogman subject. I'm not saying that I necessarily believe that like Dogman is manifesting in our reality because of like rituals or something. I don't know how any of that stuff works, but that is a connection I've found, that I haven't been able to get away from. Even when we made like the Dogman Triangle, which again is coming at things from a very flesh and blood perspective. Even in that situation, a lot of the sighting locations were somehow connected to burial mounds or ritual sacrifice, or like odd locations. So I think that's that's got to be taken into account. I don't know what accounts for the variance in descriptions. But you are right. Like one of the things that I noticed is especially the traditional Dogman Dogman description is like it's this big barrel chested, like tough, ripped arms. It's like, your classic like werewolf from like a movie from the 80s. But when you actually start talking to a lot of the people who've seen them, it isn't always that. You do have like the Anubis description comes up a lot. We interviewed a girl for Rougarou who woke up and had one of these things in her bedroom, and that was an Anubis like creature. And then I know that the judge from American Werewolves, Shane, he also described it as reminding him of Anubis, what he saw, which is not like a huge muscular creature. That's it's almost like a furry man with a dog head. So the descriptions run the gamut, which is interesting because I think that's a new development. Like I would have to actually look into some of the older sighting reports, but I know that traditionally a Dogman encounter was your classic muscular werewolf. And if it does seem like some of these variants have really started being talked about in the past few years. So I don't know what accounts for that or what that accounts to or whatever.
I know typically the people who see the Anubis, and you even said there too, that they appear in your house, usually like in the bedroom and stuff. Have you heard of any like Anubis outside of a house or any werewolf in a house?
Shane's description was, he was running, jogging, and he was young, and he was here in Ohio, and this thing followed him in a cornfield. So that was definitely outside. Okay. But you are right. A lot of the times those are in someone's home. I think that's the scarier thing about the Dogman subject too, is it doesn't seem to respect boundaries. But it's, I don't, the guardian idea has been around for a while. I wish I could remember her name. That girl that we interviewed for Rougarou, who saw it in her bedroom, she felt that it had followed her home because she took something from a like a burial site, like a native burial site nearby, and she felt like what it was doing was trying to warn her away from going back there. It wasn't like trying to kill her or anything. It was like there to tell her not to go back. But the guardian of the forest idea is something that I've heard offered a few times now. Not guardian of the forest, but guardian of like sacred lands. That's an idea that I hear fairly often. I don't know what I think of the Dogman subject. I'm not like, it's not my favorite of the cryptids, but it's the one we keep going back to. And I do find that every time we go back to it, we have a new angle on it to explore. So like, especially with like American Werewolf, I mean, the fact that we've essentially made 3 projects this year that are about Dogman, and none of them feel similar to the next is first of all, that's good, because that means we can at least tell these stories in different ways, but also that means there's still a lot to uncover about that subject. I mean, it's relatively new, and so it's good to be able to be a part of like exploring it and opening it up to larger audiences.
It's interesting, the whole Anubis side of this is going back to ancient Egyptian mythology and stuff. He was like the guardian of the underworld or of death, and the farrier of souls and that. I wonder how many people like over in Egypt and stuff have seen that creature. You don't really, I guess I don't really hear a lot of stories or reports and sightings coming out of there. A lot of the stuff here in the Midwest is more of this, Dogman werewolf creature and stuff, but I don't know.
Yeah, I've never heard of that either. I'm interested in general in the Dogman topic outside of like the UK and the United States, because you hear about it still in the UK, but and the US obviously, but in other countries, I'm not familiar with too many sighting stories that involve, like another country.
I want to say I've heard some stuff out of Australia for werewolves and stuff, but other
That
than
makes
that,
sense. An
no idea.
Australian werewolf is that thing's gonna just straight up
Just
murder
one
you.
more thing that can kill you.
Yeah,
That just feels right.
yeah.
Well, let's change directions here. You've also done, I know on your YouTube and stuff, you have a whole series on Champ, the Lake Champlain monster. Can you tell us about
Yeah,
that
yeah.
and some of your other sea monster stuff that you've done?
Yeah, well, Champ was the first project we did with Alex. Alex had made the way I got turned on to Alex's work is he had posted a short film on a website. I think it was just cryptozoology.com. And they posted one of his short form documentaries, and it was about the Loch Ness monster. And I contacted him to ask if we could show it at Minerva Monster Day, and he was up for it. And then I ended up later. We did some stuff together. He went on some shoots, and then him and I talked about doing a project together, and that became Champ. And I knew he was already really close to Lake Champlain geographically where he lived, but he was interested in that topic overall. So yeah, we did that all the way back in 2017. And to be honest with you, we have done so much since then that I remember very little about working on the project, because it was like that was the first time I acted solely as producer. And so my job was just to make sure Alex had the money he needed, and and then watch the movie and give him feedback. And that was all, that was how I handled the production. I mean, that's how I try to handle producing any movie. I don't like to have too much, I hate to be like a backseat driver on a movie, because I know what that's like. But yeah, Champ is one that's pretty far in my rear view.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So let's talk about the one topic we haven't talked about, and that's Bigfoot. So you said that you had your own encounter. Would you mind sharing that?
Yeah. So my sighting happened in Minerva, outside of Minerva, Ohio, last year. What year is this? 22. So it was 20. No, it wasn't 22. It was 21. So 2021, we were, Heather Mosier, who works for SDM, her family owns property outside of Minerva, like 400 acres. And it's farmland, but it's surrounded by forest. And anyone who's been through Ohio, you'll have rolling fields, but then they're surrounded by forest, or there's patchy forest. And that's kind of what this is like. It's surrounded by some dense forest, and then the forest on the property itself is patchy, but real thick, because, it's Ohio. So the undergrowth is so bad during the middle of summer, you can't walk into it. So we were aware of sightings in the area surrounding this property, going all the way back to like 2018. Heather's mother-in-law had a sighting right down the road, during the middle of winter, actually, of like a 7-foot tall creature. And then Heather herself had my sighting took place in September. Heather had just moved into this house in August, but not long after moving in, she had started noticing weird activity on the property, wood knocks, calls, and then she started leaving stuff out in the woods, and then it would be taken and replaced, and things would disappear and then come back weeks later, and things like that, just odd occurrences. And so we decided to go down there and make an episode of Beyond the Trail with Alex and Eli. And we did that. We had some strange things happen, but nothing too crazy. There were some wood knocks, but nothing really wild. We had the craziest thing that happened that week for me personally. It was my son and I had gone to bed, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and a wood knock went off literally right outside the cabin. So loud that it woke me up. And I thought it was like Alex and Eli or someone doing a wood knock outside. But I went outside and there was no one there. And it turned out most of the group was about a half mile away. And then Alex was stuck in a tree stand somewhere because there was a pack of coyote that had run him up this tree stand. So it wasn't any of them. It was very clearly a wood knock that went off right outside the window. So we decided to make a series there, Heather and I, and it would be kind of like a video podcast. The plan was we would go there, we would talk about the history of Bigfoot in the state of Ohio and maybe around that area, and then we would do a night investigation and nothing would happen, because that's what you just expect, nothing's going to happen. And so we went down there on a Friday night, and I had my son Tommy, who at the time was 4, and then Heather had her kids. And that night we weren't actually going to do anything. We weren't even really planning on filming. We had a fire and we got pizza, and we were sitting out by the fire, and we heard a wood knock right up on top of the hill that overlooks the cabin. And it kind of like that kicked off a night of really wild activity. We had stuff like come in and surround us on this trail that led to the cabin. It seemed like there was a creature that walked right up to the window behind on the backside of the cabin where the kids were sitting. They were sitting inside the cabin watching their iPad, and it seemed like something came right up behind the cabin. And then Heather and I had a rock thrown at us, which hit really close to where we were. And it was insane. And so the next day we were out hanging trail cameras, and I was on a gator with Courtney was in the back, and then Heather's husband Corey was driving me, and we were out hanging trail cameras around the property, and we crossed a pipeline, clear cut pipeline that ran up this hill, and it was all overgrown with like brush and thorns. But halfway up the hill, as we're crossing over, I saw this upright dark brown creature running across the hill, and I only saw it for like less than a second. It was right at the tree line. It was like I saw the last few steps into the tree line. Like and it is at 2:00 on a bright day. I don't know why it was running there, but it just crossed into the tree line, and I just saw it make it into the tree line. And I yelled for Corey to stop, but by the time I had said stop, I had already jumped from the moving gator, and I ran down to where the brush line was and stopped because you can't go into the thorns and stuff. And it was gone. So that was my sighting. It was interesting. Later, we went there to that same spot, and they had brush hogged it, and we were able to find that where this thing was running was a dirt road, which made a lot of sense, because the way it looked to me was that this thing was running on top of the brush, which was because I could see its legs, and I could see its arms and everything, but it made no sense physically to me how this thing was running on top of brush. But then when we found that there was a dirt road that connects the farm up the road to the other farm. The other interesting thing about that location, that road, is it runs right by a little spot that we started calling the boneyard, and that's because there's like 70 cattle bodies, skeletons, decomposing heads, all sorts of stuff that are just thrown up there by a neighboring farmer. So there could be a connection there. I don't know if they would be feeding off that or what, but that was a very interesting development in that story that came later. We are to the point now, unfortunately, that we believe they're gone, that they're not there. That was all filmed for a series we were doing called the Bigfoot Project that was on our YouTube channel. And I really want to do a wrap up episode, because what happened is the sightings really popped off, not sightings, but activity really popped off during September. Historically, Minerva monster sightings and sightings around Minerva pop off from August into early October. And that's 100% what happened. We had all sorts of activity well into October, and then come November, the leaf canopy falls, and there was nothing going on. But the other thing that happened prior to us coming to that property was that the neighboring property, which had a much richer wildlife, a way more dense forest, a really good water supply, caves, they started clear cutting that property. And we think what happened is they were just moving over onto this property just because they were being pushed out of the area, wound up on the property we were at. And then what happened on the property we were at is they started clear cutting and developing some of the hill. The hill I had my sighting on has been completely clear cut. It's all ripped up, and they're reinstalling the pipeline. And so there's been no activity since February of 2022, which sucked because I had Cliff Barrickman there in May of 2022, or not May. Yeah, it was May. It was very early May of 2022, and nothing happened. Nothing happened there. We were trying to figure out where these things could go. And so we drove to a nearby lake, and almost as soon as we got out of the car at the lake, we had a really cool call. Something screamed at us. It sounded like an ambulance, but there's no roads where this was coming from. And so they're there, but they're not there. They're not at the property where they were before. It was a weird, there's something like really sad about that to me. Like the idea that these things are nomadic and moving around, just trying to, stay hidden. I think that's how they function anyway. But it was, at the same time, it's really cool that we had the opportunity. I mean, I was in BC last week, and you're looking at like the files of John Green and all this work that John Green did that they're preserving there. And it constantly comes up that John Green never had a sighting. Like, he never saw anything. And the Hinden didn't either. And Krantz didn't. And so if you see something, I think it's like the ultimate luck. But I was really glad that I had the chance to see something for myself. I wish it had been a longer sighting and maybe a little clearer, because you do sort of second guess the thing after it happens. But that's my story.
That's awesome. That's very lucky. Congrats on your sighting.
Yeah.
I haven't seen one with my eyes yet. I've seen them on thermal. I would say cool. 2 or 3 times now I've got to see them on thermal. One of my other team members, actually my mom, has actually seen one cross a road down in Kentucky.
Where at in Kentucky?
We were doing filming at Portal 31, which is a coal mine that you can go down and take a tour. And it's also haunted. So we did a whole episode on that. And we had parked in the morning, right in the morning, early morning. And we were getting out to shoot some B-roll of the the coal mine and stuff. And it crossed the road right down from where we were. But I had my head in the trunk of the car, and she was watching. So
did your mom goes with this on the stuff with you? That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. Yep. We got about
my mom did that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Does she do it because of your interest in it, or was she into it before you?
She was into paranormal and stuff. I used to own an actual haunted house that was haunted. Does that make sense? Like a Halloween haunted house that was haunted. Yeah. And we had all kinds of stuff happen while we were building and doing stuff there. So, and she's had experiences younger when she was and stuff. So she's been into more of the paranormal and that. But yeah, so she's into all of it. She does all of our research and that because she has a lot more time to read and sit down and watch all that stuff and that. But
that's awesome.
Yep. Very cool. We're almost at the end of our show here. I want to give you an opportunity to first of all talk about what you got coming up this weekend, which is the first ever Monster Fest. If you want to give your promo and talk about everything that's going to be going on.
Yeah. Monster Fest kicks off on Friday night at the Canton Palace Theater. We're going to do a premiere of Land of the Missing, which is the second of our Alaska movies that we shot back in 2022. This one's really really interesting and a big departure from previous On the Trail of Bigfoot movies, in that really delves deeply into the darker side of Bigfoot lore, because you can't escape it in Alaska. So we get into the missing people topic somewhat. We also delve into UFOs in it and the Dark Pyramid and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be really cool. And seeing it on the big screen at the Palace is going to be wild, because that's one of the largest screens in northeastern Ohio. And, there's 4K helicopter footage of Denali National Park that we shot ourselves. That's really going to be wild to see on the big screen. So if you can make it, be there. There's also going to be a Q&A after the screening with some of the guests from the event. And we're going to kind of do a general overview of Bigfoot, and probably the missing people stuff will come up somewhat too. So we're excited about that. And then the event itself takes place on Saturday, starting at VIPs get in at 9. General admission is at 10. Speakers and podcasters begin at 10:30. And there's a screening. I don't know anything. Courtney did all the planning, so she put everything together.
Seems a weird echo there.
I should have had like a teleprompter set up. No, the screening room is going to be playing movies throughout the day, and then the speakers have a sizable area downstairs where they'll be talking. There's only 4 speakers, so I know Micah is one of the speakers. Alexander Petikoff, Amy Boo, Stan Gordon, Uncle Stan, as we call him. They're all speaking as well. And the big thing, though, with this event, I want to make this clear, is that it isn't speakers. It's the fact that we want the audience and the people attending, the attendees, to be able to interact directly with the people that are guests. So I know that's kind of difficult at these events. Sometimes there's usually like very long lines and things like that, or they're so busy in like a speaking room for like 2+ hours that you never get a chance to talk to them. So I wanted this to be more of a Comic-Con atmosphere, but one where you don't have to spend a bunch of money to get something signed or a photo. So you just pay for your ticket and then come get your picture with someone. Talk to Lyle Blackburn about, his hat or whatever. But yeah, we're really excited about it, and it's taking place at the DoubleTree by Hilton. Oh, it says on the flyer 10 to 6. Look at that. Tickets at stmmonsterfest.com. Vendors, guest speakers, live podcasts, June 3rd. So yeah, be there. Oh, and kids 12 and under are free. So it's a family-friendly event. So come out and bring the kids and meet all these wonderful people.
Awesome. There's a better.
Oh, and we'll have copies of the book. We'll have copies of the Texas Dogman Triangle by Aaron Deese, and Aaron will also be there to sign copies of the book. And we'll have a poster for the book, and we will have Land of the Missing posters along with event posters. So there's a lot of posters. So many t-shirts. We have all the t-shirts you could desire.
Very cool. Can't wait. So what else you got? You got a YouTube channel? You have documentaries, and where can people find you and get more information?
Well, the Sasquatch Unearthed Mountain State Monsters kicks off on next Sunday, and that's one day after Monster Fest. That's one that I shot and edited, so it does have my stamp on it in a way that some of the YouTube stuff doesn't. I don't know if viewers will think that's a good thing or a bad thing, but this is very much a Seth Breedlove production. So I'm excited for people to watch it. It's about West Virginia, and it's heavily focused on sort of spending a lot of time with a witness and an investigator in each episode. So hopefully going forward, the first episode is very much about setting the stage for West Virginia's relationship with Bigfoot. Episode 2 is going to get into some of the weird stuff, the more paranormal side of the Bigfoot topic there. But that kicks off for our channel members. I think they'll have it next Wednesday. But you'll see trailers and stuff for that start to pop up now, because I literally just finished it before I did this show. So we're excited about that. And then obviously Mysteries and Monsters will be on YouTube as well. And Beyond the Trail will keep coming out on there. And then Alex has a show called, I don't remember what we ended up calling this. Is it Dark Coast? Dark Coast. This has not been announced anywhere, but I'm going to make the official announcement at the event with like an image. But this show's called Dark Coast, but it's also there's a subtitle. I can't remember what the subtitle is, but we're really excited about that. That is going to be an ongoing or a mini series that kicks off this summer and then runs all the way through the fall. And it's going to track Alex's 2.5 weeks spent at Area A in Alaska this summer. So he's going there literally driving there right from Monster Fest. And then he'll be there for he'll be in Alaska itself for an entire month. He's doing multiple episodes Beyond the Trail there. And then he's also filming this whole series while he's there as well. So that kicks off the summer. At some point this summer, I think in August, there will be one big project coming out each week on YouTube. So that'll be the first time where every week we will have either Sasquatch on Earth, Mysteries and Monsters, BTT, and this new Alaskan series all running concurrently. So it's going to be huge this summer. The next movie we have coming out is the Dogman Triangle. It will be out on June 26th or June 27th. It's one of those days. That will be on most major streaming platforms. And then June 27th. And then the next movie we have coming out will be Land of the Missing, which doesn't come out until August. So if you're a Kickstarter backer, you're going to have both of these months before they're actually out. So we're pretty excited about that. But I think that covers it. Smalltownmonsters.com. Follow us on social media. Don't follow me. I'm really boring on social media. I just post pictures of my kid. So, but
awesome. Very cool. Very cool, man. I look forward to it. Make sure that everyone checks out Small Town Monsters on YouTube, smalltownmonsters.com, and all your work. Awesome stuff there. So thank you very much for coming on the show today. And
thanks for having me.
Look forward to seeing you again. And it'll be about 2 weeks, but about a week from when this airs, and at the Small Town Monsters Festival.
Thanks, man.
Awesome. I'll see you there.
See you.
All right, guys, that's our show. If you guys are anywhere in Ohio, go out and check out the Small Town Monsters Festival. Again, it is June 2nd and 3rd in Canton, Ohio. Small Town Monsters Monster Fest. Going to be a great time, great event. And the Caps guys, myself, Ma, we're going to be out there. You can come out and hang out with us and ask her about her Sasquatch sighting, because there you go. But guys, next week, I'm really excited. My guest next week is going to be Dan Nedrolo. He is a herpetologist, and I've had him on one of my shows before. He is very knowledgeable about all things reptilian and amphibian and stuff like that. And he's going to be following up on one of our previous episodes that we were talking with Chitan Noir about regeneration of animals and asexual reproduction. So he's going to be here to talk about all things that, and it should be a really fascinating episode about reptiles and cryptids and all kinds of stuff. So that's next week right here on Monsters on the Edge on the Untold Radio Network. So until then, guys, until next time, I'll see you on the edge.